Rachel, lovely to see you.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh. Well, good morning, everybody. I am the very proud coordinator of an EIC Pathfinder Challenges project called Microbial Hydroponics. And for those of you that don't know the Pathfinder Challenges program, essentially it's a call whereby researchers and SMEs and entrepreneurs get together and try to tackle a big challenge that has been set by the EIC. And the idea behind that then is the different ways, the different strategies for addressing that big issue can increase the impact of the individual researchers and the entrepreneurs. And the question that me and my team responded to was this amazing idea that if we were going to tackle greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, we shouldn't really just be thinking about carbon dioxide on its own, but also to think about it in combination with nitrogen metabolism. And why is that important? Because as many of you will know, that when carbon and nitrogen get entangled, we start thinking about biological molecules, biomass, and proteins, things that actually are good for nature. So I'm going to talk about my project first, and then I'm going to just discuss a little bit about why the EIC Pathfinder Challenges is just such an amazing opportunity to increase the impact of individual research and entrepreneurship. So first of all, here is the subject of our particular response to that question of how do we simultaneously deal with carbon and nitrogen management and valorization. And as you can see, plants already do this. The green leaves of a plant are dealing with the carbon dioxide question, and the little white roots are dealing with the nitrogen issues. And so our question really comes about food security and also the quality of hydroponic produce, which is now becoming more critical to Europe in terms of urban farming, in terms of thinking about how do we feed our cities at a time of climate change and at a time where the quality and health of our soils are deteriorating. So we wanted to actually think about how these hydroponic units are currently being nurtured in terms of the nitrogen that they receive. And most of that is produced by a chemical process that is manufactured in a system called the Haber-Bosch process. But that produces a lot of carbon dioxide. And so is there another way of us being able to feed our plants without creating the nitrogen runoff that's creating problems for farmers and problems for the environment in many European lands? So the answer that we came up with is that if we look at natural plants, plants that don't just live in water, plants that live in soil, they have what's known as a rhizosphere. It's a little microbial communities and other kinds of organisms that help them make really great use of the nitrogen in the soil. And so our plan is to take wastewater rather than chemical fertilizers and transform wastewater into really good quality, biologically usable nitrogen molecules for the roots of hydroponic plants. And so we're calling this an artificial rhizosphere or a prosthetic rhizosphere, effectively a little black box that you can plug into your hydroponic system. And then that should, and we're going to do the experiment, should make also our plants tastier. Because what makes tasty molecules are the stresses and the struggles that the plants have with their microbiomes and their rhizospheres. So here you can see the setup that we've got. This is the first year that we're working in this domain. We've got some basil plants, which are our little trial organisms. And as you can see, we're using microbial fuel cells and various inputs from wastewater and the strategic control of light to find the right wavelengths to optimize nitrogen metabolism in order to create this. And in the closing seconds of this talk, I just want to say that we are part of a portfolio. So the portfolio challenges invites different research groups and entrepreneurs together to address this question of carbon and nitrogen metabolism. And what's been really amazing is that although we're working with colleagues that have got very different interests in this question, we can already start to see the beginnings of an economy. If we start to develop the relationships between our different groups so that the end product of one of our research advances is the input for the starting point for one of the other entrepreneurs, then we're already not just growing individual widgets, we're actually starting to grow ready-made ecosystems of economic value and exchange. And personally, I think that is a fantastic way to think about increasing impact and is the unique strength of the EIC Pathfinder Challenges project. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Rachel Armstrong. Thank you so much. Go and grab her afterwards, have a chat. That's what this event is all about, meeting, greeting, and connecting with inspiring people doing incredible things. Thank you for that. All right, we're going to move on with the final conversation for this morning session. Then we'll run off for a coffee break, so stay still, because you'll get a moment to run off and grab a coffee in a few minutes' time. So let's bring him on, my fellow Nordic friend from just outside of Oslo, in Sweden, called Gothenburg, Christoffer Levandowski, the Public Funding and Innovation Program Manager at Heart Aerospace. Christoffer, välkommen! Hej då!
Hey. Thank you. My name is Christoffer Levandowski, and I'm here to talk about airplanes. Who has been on an airplane? I would say that would be 99% of the people in here. That's interesting, because only 20% of the world's population has ever been on an airplane. Currently, the CO2 emissions from aviation is about 3% of the world's CO2 emissions. But by 2050, it's expected to triple. And in the wake of other industries decarbonizing, it's expected to cover 22% of the world's population in 2050. And emissions is not a problem for 2050. What we do today will matter on how the world looks in 2050. We've done amazing things in aviation. We've reduced, basically from the 60s down to now, we've reduced the fuel burn from regular jet engines to about half of what it was in the 1960s. But that technology has reached its limits. So we need new technology to come in. That's why people are talking about hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels, and electric aviation. At Heart Aerospace, this is our solution to that problem. This is the Heart ES30, a 30-passenger aircraft for regional aviation. It's a hybrid electric aircraft with 2 electric motors inboard, 2 regular motors outboard. It can fly up to 200 kilometers on batteries only, and then we can extend that range with a hybrid configuration up to 800 kilometers. So typically taking those routes that are considered regional routes. And regional aviation is today about 1/3 of the CO2 emissions. So by 2050, flying this aircraft, we would be able to reduce the CO2 emissions in the world by about 1 gigaton. So the EIC came in at a very critical moment in our company's history and supported us through the EIC Accelerator. It was between the seeding round and our Series A round where we had started to gain some traction, but we really needed to level up on our milestones. And they came in and they supported a very, perhaps the most critical component in the entire aircraft. In an electric aircraft, you need an electric powertrain. And this is what you see in the picture. So in aviation, with a very, very heavy burden of proving that things are safe, you need to do altitude testing, vibration testing, temperature testing, and of course, we need to prove to our customers that we can have the same propulsive power on an electric drivetrain as we have on their regular aircraft. But we didn't stop there. We took this drivetrain, we tested it quite extensively, and we put it on this aircraft, our first experimental prototype, the Heart X1, that will be flying later this year. It's a fully electric aircraft, so not a hybrid aircraft. But we will be flying it, and we're looking to prove that this is actually possible. And when it flies, it will be the largest electric aircraft that has ever flown. And from Heart Aerospace, thank you so much to the EIC for your support, and thank you for listening.